Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Discover the Path to Revenue Clarity, presented by Matt Seefeld. My name is Ashley Deitch, and I'm the Vice President of Marketing for MedEvolve. I just have a few instructions here before I hand it off to Matt. As you heard at the beginning, everyone is in listen-only mode, so if you have any questions during the presentation, there should be a box to the right of your screen similar to the one that you can see here. Please submit any questions that you have at any time throughout the presentation, and we'll do our best to address them at the end. If you don't see this question box, you should be able to access it from the control panel that's in a tab at the top of your screen. And also, if you have any issues during the webinar, there's an option to raise your hand, and if I see your hand raised, I'll do my best to resolve any issues. And that's all I have, so Matt, take it away.
Thanks, Ashley. I appreciate everyone joining. Probably be about 30 to 45 minutes, depending on questions at the end. Just a little background on me. I do oversee all of our revenue cycle functions here at MedEvolve. I'm also in charge of our data science team, and I do oversee sales and business development. So a few hats. Spent about almost 20 years now in healthcare revenue cycle. That's all I've done since I graduated undergrad. I've done a lot of turnaround experience in the large academic medical centers to small ambulatory physician groups. Also kind of relevant to today's webinar, I did build a healthcare analytics workflow management company, which I sold to Streamline Health in 2011. And we've really replicated a lot of that methodology here at MedEvolve over the past year and continue to evolve. So that's a little bit about me. I always like getting into these webinars, but it's very one-directional, so it's kind of hard talking to cyberspace, but I do appreciate all of you that are on here. As Ashley stated, if there are questions, we'll try to get to as many as we can at the end. If we don't get to your question, shoot us an email. I'll make sure you have my contact information. I'd be happy to address them after the fact. A little bit about MedEvolve, for those of you that aren't aware, company's been around for more than 20 years. We are privately held. We're not backed by private equity or investment, so we make a lot of our own decisions, which is nice. We do serve over 600 physician practices across the U.S., a lot of providers, and we're headquartered in Little Rock, Arkansas. We got about 100 employees there, and we've got some associates in and around the U.S. as well. What are we going to talk about today? Revenue clarity. We'll define that. We'll talk about roadblocks to revenue clarity, really roadblocks to getting at your data and analytics. How do you start to build a data governance structure in your organization that allows you to have rapid decision making and really understand where there could be leakage in your revenue cycle? I'll walk through some case examples and I'll summarize at the end. So by definition, other than a really cool marketing buzzword, what is revenue clarity? We don't have a whole lot of time anymore in healthcare to wonder what's going on in our revenue cycle. And so when you close that month, you need to have that narrative in front of you the moment you close. You can't wait till the 10th, the 15th, 20th of the month, and then have to put 100 different reports together to say, well, am I on target? Am I not on target? If I'm not on target, what should I be doing differently? You don't have that time anymore, right? Margins are too thin. And you've got headaches that you're dealing with just running practices in general, right? And so you need speed to your information. It needs to be practical information. How fast can you analyze your revenue cycle? I mean, if you're spending more than 5 minutes a month, that's too long, right? With data science now and artificial intelligence and machine learning, which some topics we'll talk about later today, you can have these things at your fingertips. You don't need to spend endless hours trying to understand information. It should be presented to you quickly. Where are you losing money? That's a big topic in today's world. What are your top 3 revenue cycle priorities for this month? Are you getting paid what you expect to be paid? Not only by the insurance company, but in this day and age, by the patient as well. And how much of that patient money are you getting paid before you ever deliver a service, which is even more important. If you answered yes, then congratulations, you guys have achieved it. I rarely get yes to that. I think a lot of groups have come very far when it comes to data analytics, business intelligence, but there's definitely a long way to go for all of us. If you answered no, then you're right there with the rest of us, and we continue to evolve together. One of the things that I'm fascinated over the last 20 years is how much time we spend trying to find information to drive action plans. 85% of the time we're trying to get at information. When I interview clients and I say, can you get at a lot of the information that we present on our scorecards? Like, well, yeah, I can. Okay, define can. Well, it takes a while. It would take a long time actually, but we could get at it. It's like, but you don't have a while anymore, right? You got to spend that 80% of your time designing the action plans and implementing change. And then you have to quickly measure whether that change was effective or not. If it wasn't effective, you got to readjust, and you have to know where to readjust. And so that you need to be able to have access to information in speed and ways that you've never had before. You have to have the pulse of your revenue cycle any hour of the day. You need to know exactly where you stand. This isn't just a once a month true up. This is something, real time, near real time. You've got to be able to look at benchmarks. How do you do within your specialty compared to other specialties? There's tons of benchmarking agencies out there all over. Pick and choose wisely on which ones you go after, but see how you're doing and how you compare. Cost to collect is another term I always bring up when I talk to folks. Your cost to collect has to come down. There's just absolutely nothing about it. You're not going to improve your net revenue dramatically by insurance companies deciding tomorrow they're going to pay you more. And half that dollar is coming from your consumer now. And we all know the consumer doesn't always like to pay what they're supposed to pay before you deliver the service. And it's really hard to collect that stuff after the service. So your margins are already thin and getting thinner. You have to reduce your cost to collect. And how can you do that? You can do that by being smarter with your revenue cycle, but you have to be able to get information to tell you that where you need to focus. I always say, manage by the numbers, make sure your numbers are accurate and objective, take the emotion out of it. You need to be making decisions based on fact, not feelings, and you need to stay away from subjectivity. Some common roadblocks that we've seen. The complexity nowadays of revenue cycle, legislation, compliance, consumerism, disrupts your workflows, from the point you engage a consumer at the point of scheduling till the time you zero balance that account. There's so many things that go into play there, some of which you don't even control anymore. And so you have to be smarter at how you're managing the end-to-end revenue cycle, which is impacting cash flow. You need to find ways to work smarter. You can't throw people at the problems anymore. You have to look at automation. These are all things that I think are fairly common out there in the marketplace, but implementing those things is difficult. Designing those things can be difficult as well. Making sure you're getting paid. I talked about that before. Are you being paid based on your fee schedules? Are patients paying you what they owe? Mitigating risk of staff turnover. I mean, we do have a large revenue cycle group here at MedEvolve that I oversee. We're in the people business, and it's tough, right? People coming and going, and managing people is tough, not just in revenue cycle, but in healthcare and frankly in business as usual. No margin means no mission. So if you don't reduce your spend, it's going to be really hard to deliver to your communities. And unfortunately, we see that. Every day I read some of these news periodicals, and it's like, oh, another critical access went under. Hospital closes its door. Or we talk to these physicians who are independently owned and operated, and they have to sell the hospital because they just can't make money anymore. But they don't really want to sell the hospital. They want to maintain their independence. Well, we want to help our clients do both. Okay. But you got to have margin if you're going to have a mission and deliver a service to the community. Some of the other things that are pretty broad-based terms, right? We talked about margin. We talked about turnover, quality, right? How do you measure quality? How do you measure outcomes? Resource strains, spreadsheets. I hate spreadsheets. I mean, I came from the consulting world where we lived in pivot tables and Excel. And to be honest with you, it just takes a lot of time. I want to be able to tell a story about my analytics. I want to be able to read in 5 minutes or less and understand exactly where I am. I don't want to have to go to 50 pivot tables to try to understand where there might be opportunities or maybe they're not. A lot of the times that ends in dead ends. If you don't have good visibility in your key performance indicators, it's going to be tough to run. You can't look at just basic things like AR days anymore. I always love them like, well, my AR days are 17. Really? Are they? I mean, I can calculate AR days many different ways, you know? So you have to really challenge yourself to look at complex indicators, which a lot of times come from multiple variables. It's not as easy as one or two, a numerator and a denominator anymore. You know, we'll show you some examples here later on. You know, I just run out of time. You know, I run our revenue cycle practice here, and we have quite a few clients, and I tell my teams, I said, I got about 5 minutes per client per month. I need to be able to go through our scorecard and in less than 5 minutes know whether I have to start asking questions or not. I don't have 10 minutes. I don't have an hour. I don't have to have a day, right? I mean, I just don't. And you all don't either. Anyone that's on this call that are managing practices, large, medium, small, you don't have that time anymore, right? You're a good decade or more behind, you know, modern industry when it comes to some of the stuff. But disparate IT systems, databases don't talk to each other. You know, there's push for interoperability. What does that really mean? The key is that you have to have a way to access and grab data from multiple databases, but you have to be able to structure it and present it in a way that allows you to make informed business decisions. And that is not easy. You know, there's lots of companies out there trying to do it. A lot of those companies don't understand the revenue cycle. They're really cool data visualization technologies, but they don't understand the pain you go through every day. So you have to make sure that when you're looking for off-the-shelf solutions, that that you're working with a company that really understands what it's like to be in revenue cycle management, because it is different. You know, when I think of kind of that last bullet there, is it action plans, mitigating risk, maximizing results, right? Big buzzwords. But at the end of the day, if I can give you 80% of your time back to actually implement change, you're going to be so much more positioned, so much more well-positioned to be successful in this industry. I struggle when I hear this story. Well, it takes me 15 days in the month to figure out how I'm doing, sometimes 20 days. And it's like, and then what? Well, then the next month starts. So, well, but what did you do about those findings? Well, I didn't really have time. Or, you know, that's the stuff that it's really sad to hear, because, you know, there are solutions out there in the marketplace that can give you that time back. So let's talk about data, right? Big data, clinical outcomes, right? Everyone's talking about population health, you know, value-based care, outcomes, all that stuff, right? Well, rev cycle in some cases kind of gets left behind. I actually think financial outcomes, similar to clinical outcomes, are almost more important, because if you don't have the financial outcomes, you can't deliver the service to your communities. And then the clinical outcomes really are moot. Okay, so you have to have financial outcomes, financial health, to be able to really deliver the quality of care that you want to do to the community. And frankly, you have to get paid for the care that you're delivering. Okay, artificial intelligence, machine learning, big buzzwords, everyone's talking about it. But at the end of the day, those are real things. And if you're not using AI to generate workflow automation, being able to repurpose staff, be able to remove staff, cut your costs, you're not where you need to be. Same with on the analytics side. You know, AI and machine learning can really help you predict what's going on in your revenue cycle. And if you need to make decisions today because of things that are on the horizon that could be negative for your financials, then you need to be able to know that. Okay. And, you know, these algorithms also allow you to process tons of data. You know, we're not stuck in Excel anymore, right? I mean, you can go through gigabytes, terabytes. I don't even know how many more bytes there are out there, but data really, really fast, and you can analyze that data really fast. And so it's important to realize that we do have unparalleled access to data now. It's just what we do with it is where the power comes. Okay. You know, we talked about, you know, somebody asked me one time, you know, what do you mean when you say structured data for informed decisions? What I mean is that anyone can have data visualization tools and go do data mining, and they can drill down 5 different ways from Sunday. But when someone can structure your data for you and present it to you in a way that allows you to make a rapid decision or an informed decision, that's a game changer. right? And that's what we've had to do with our scorecard, because again, I only have 5 minutes. I don't have 2 hours. I don't have 10 analysts that are going to crunch numbers for me. I got 5 minutes to tell the story. And it needs to be a narrative that I understand is digestible, okay? And that's important. Spend your time focusing on implementing, not finding information. So one of the things, how can analytics help, right? I think some of these are basic, right? Monitor your key performance indicators. How am I trending over time? How do I compare from prior periods? How quickly can you identify where you may be struggling financially or operationally? Are there certain workflows in my revenue cycle I need to automate? The data is telling me a story here, right? It's telling me a story around denials. If I've got a first pass denial issue around COB eligibility, registration, authorization, do I need to relook at my whole financial clearance process? Maybe I need to look at the people, maybe the process, maybe the technology they're using, maybe a combination of all three. So let the data, though, tell you where you need to look, and then make adjustments as needed. Hold your payers and patients accountable. If you don't hold your patients and your payers accountable, you're going to have to close. You're going to close up shop. I mean, that's just the bottom line. When I meet with prospects or clients these days, and they say, "Well, I'm not really focused on the patient liability." It's like that. Well, that was fine a decade ago. That's absolutely not fine anymore. You just can't. You can't live like that. You have to be able to collect from the consumer, and frankly, you have to be able to maximize reimbursement from the insurance companies. And they like to play games. We're all in revenue cycle management, I think, on this call. We all understand the AR game, right? Delays in reimbursement and tactics. So beat them at their own game, but have data and information at your fingertips. It's really hard to argue against you when you have information at your fingertips that will circumvent any argument that the payers have. Fast, speed, smart decision making, right? Business decisions. You've got to be able to move fast, head on a swivel. Every other industry can make decisions so fast. There's no reason in healthcare. I mean, if you think of clinical data, right? We're trying to speed at which doctors can make informed decisions while the patient is right on the operating table, right? That's how fast they want to move. There's no reason we can't make similar decisions. It may not be life or death of a patient, but it could be life or death of the organization if you don't maintain your margin. So speed is important. If you're sitting there going, well, I get a lot of analytics, I'm pretty comfortable with my analytics, it takes a long time to get, but I usually am good. It takes a long time to get is not good enough anymore. It needs to be minutes right in front of you, and you need to know whether you're hemorrhaging somewhere. And if you are hemorrhaging somewhere, what do you need to do about it? And then you have to weigh to measure what you did about it. Is it working? Is it not? Okay. Benchmarking, people ask me about that. Absolutely, you want to benchmark, right? You want to look at benchmarks, internal benchmarks, external benchmarks. There's tons of things out there. You can look at RVs, you can look at evaluation and management codes, you can look at net collection rate. You can look at lots of things to see how you're doing. So, some of we're going to get to examples here shortly. Some of the insights that you can garner, right? You can look at where your cost to collect may be increasing. You could look at where you may be losing patients, right? Referral leakage. Are you declining reimbursement per case? If so, why, right? Is it the procedures you're doing? Is it the payers associated with the patients that you're doing those procedures on? Those are the things you have to get at fast. You can't spend 2 weeks analyzing it, because by the time you're done analyzing that, you will have already lost another 2 weeks, which could be a material impact to your cash flow. Are patients being informed of their responsibility up front? What level of accountability are you putting on them? What data do you present to them that you have based on how they've treated your clinic in the past? We've done some things recently where we look at scheduled patients who've had historical bad debt write-offs. You should know that patients are coming in to see you again, that you've already sent to collections one or more times. No-shows, cancel same day. I get a lot of people like, well, the doctors like no-shows because they freeze up their calendar a little bit. Not if you're losing $25,000 a month because of them. It's like, well, we've got we charge patients a no-show fee of $50. But what if your average reimbursement for that would have been $125 and you could have put another person in that slot? I'll take the 125 more than 50. Do you know who your frequent no-showers are? Do you know who your frequent no-showers are that are on your calendar for next week? Can you engage with them on a personal level the next time they schedule? Is that information brought to the screen in front of you, in front of your scheduler, the registrars? These are things that you have to start thinking about if you're not already, because this is going to be the difference between a varsity business and a freshman squad business, and you don't want to be on the freshman team here. It's too it's too brutal in healthcare now, and it's not going to get any cleaner anytime soon. I don't think the 2020 election is going to solve our problems. You're all on mute, so you can't laugh or agree with me on that one. But I can tell you right now, I don't believe it's going to solve all of our problems here in healthcare. But I'm sure we'll hear a lot of theories about how they're going to reduce costs. You know, at the end of the day, analytics is going to be able to tell you a lot of things, but you have to make sure you're looking at the right things, and you have to make sure that you already have guidance on those action plans, and how you can, you know, how you can actually implement changes and then see if those changes are working. We're going to talk a little bit about that here in a second. Lots of data, KPIs are out there, right? I mean, we look at lots of things. We look at lags, charge, bill, payment lags. We're looking at, you know, patient visits, percentage of new patients. We're looking at net collection rate. Are you getting paid what you should be? You know, denials, AR, payer mix trending, right? There's tons of everything, missing charges, right? Revenue leakage. 100% write-offs. So we're looking at a lot of this, is a sampling of measures that we look at internally on behalf of our clients, both on the revenue cycle side and our clients that use our scorecard service, to just make sure we're maximizing that dollar, right? And if we're not, then we know where we're losing that money. Working smarter, not harder. I'll take that any day. I can't say I always do that. I sometimes feel like I'm working harder and not smarter, but at least the aspiration is to work smarter and not harder. You all running clinics, you are overseeing business offices, you all may be actually doing the functions yourself or all the above. You don't have time to try to find information. You just don't. It's got to be brought to the surface. You also have to have the expertise to be able to drill down. I mean, there's a reason that consulting is a multi-trillion-dollar industry out there, is that some folks just need an outside party to come in and objectively say, this is what's going on and this is what we recommend. That's okay. I mean, that's how I started my career. It's okay to do that. And I think that what we've learned when we've been doing our scorecard as a service with our clients is that it's fun to sit there for an hour or two a month and dialogue about the revenue cycle. And, hey, does this work? Have you tried this? Yeah, we tried that. It didn't work here because of A, B, and C. Well, what about this? Have you tried this? Right. So start to, again, you've got objective, accurate data, and you're having a conversation around that data, you know, but you have to have the expertise in the room that understands the pains and sufferings of revenue cycle. It can't just be somebody in a vacuum saying, I think I understand healthcare, because that does not work. And this kind of goes into, you know, the analyst side of this, is that whether you do this internally with your own people, whether you bring in a consulting firm to help, whether you work with someone like a Medevolve, you know, it is important that you have an objective party helping you understand your data and what the story and the narrative is telling. Worst case scenario, you get some good feedback on the way things have worked for other organizations. You know, that's the worst case scenario. Best case scenario is that you have a great relationship with this individual or group of individuals that can really help you problem solve. You know, you have another person on your team that can help you do this. And this is really why we created our analytics as a service feature. And because we have revenue cycle experts that can sit with our clients every month and can really tell that story with them. Like, let's read the story together. Again, you got 5 minutes, right? Let's read it together. Let's interpret it. And let's talk about the reality. You know, do you need to do some changes to people? Is there some process that needs to be looked at? Is there some technology that's out there on the market? Maybe we have it, maybe we don't, but there's a partner that does, or maybe there's another vendor that we've learned about. Whether it's someone like Medevolve, an advisory firm, or somebody internally, you got to have that objective party that can sit there and say, I'm not picking favorites here. This is the revenue cycle. This is what the data is telling me. We've agreed it's accurate and it's timely, and this is what we're going to do about it. So lots of different value adds. You know, I call them RCM strategists, whatever you want to call it yourself is fine, you know, but looking for trends, root causes, developing the action plans is important, right? I mean, a lot of times we've done this stuff before, you know, or you've done this stuff before. Measurement, you've got to be able to measure the effectiveness of the changes you've implemented. You know, looking at historical measures, you know, looking at billing measures, looking at benchmarks, all of those things have to be incorporated in this dialogue that you have every month when you're looking at your information. So let's look at some examples here. So, you know, and these are just examples, but, you know, again, we talked about being able to, you know, on a consistent basis, understand your revenue cycle in a few minutes each month, right? I will put the caveat out there that you do have to have access to data visualization technology. So if you don't, you need to find a way to do that. Now our clients do have access to practice analytics. It's real-time drill down key performance indicator tool that's been very effective, right? Because it's not just once a month, right? If you need to go look at root cause today, you need to be able to do that, okay? So it's not just a once a month journey. But where could you improve? You know, is your charge lag where it needs to be? Are you trying to grow the clinic? You know, is 19% new patient visit, is that acceptable to you? You know, what's your clearinghouse edits? You know, if your bills aren't making it out the door to the insurance company, why are they not making it out? If they make it to the insurance company and they're saying, do not pass go, I'm not paying you, well, why are you getting denied? You know, what can we do upstream to change that, right? How's your AR performing? You know, are you writing off too much AR at 100% of charge, right? Do you have a lot of visits out there over a month old that doesn't have a charge on it? Why is that, right? It's, you know, how am I doing in collecting co-insurance up front? So again, you pick your measures, make them consistent, make them accurate, and make them timely so that you can see how you're doing each month. Net collection rate. People always ask me, well, how much should I have collected? Well, how much are you collecting? You know, if you're owed $1, are you collecting $1? A benchmark would say you're getting at least 96 cents on the dollar. Well, how are you doing? You know, so you have to be able to get your net collection rate. Gross collection rate doesn't matter to me. It really doesn't. People are like, oh, my gross collection rate is 30%. I'm like, well, what does that mean? That just means your charges are higher or lower than the guy next to you. You know, you got to look at your net rate. Net is really what matters, you know, and then that's important. And it's not an easy number to get to. It's where you have to pull in a lot of variables, but you should know at any single time how much is owed to you by the insurance company from the services you've already rendered and how much is owed to you by the patient. And if you don't know that, you know, talk to me afterwards and we can share some ideas, but that is an important number for you to have. Payer mix trending. Again, people, I love my cash is down. I collected more money a year ago. What's wrong? Well, I mean, there's two variables that are potentially out there. The first one could be that you're just not collecting from your patients and they now owe you more of that dollar this year than they did last year. That's a real example. But the second thing is there's something happening with your insurance, your payer mix. There's something happening with your payer mix that's putting pressure on your cash flow without you doing a thing. You have to have this information. Again, if your cash is down a month and you've got doctors in your office saying, well, why is my cash down? You need information at your fingertips to say, this is why. Medicare has gone up and their gross collection rate is 17%. Blue Cross has gone down and their gross collection rate is 22%. So they pay 5 cents better than Medicare, but I've lost 5% of my revenue on them over the last 13 months. You have to have this information. Again, you can calculate this. It's not easy to get to and it's sometimes time consuming. This has to snap out. It has to be right in front of you every single month so you know what's going on. People talk about consumerism nowadays, right? Holding patients accountable. You know, not only hold them accountable for what they owe you, but also for showing up. You know, that economic loss by a no-show or a same-day cancel can be material for an organization. People don't necessarily realize that. You're not only losing the ability to pop somebody else in that slot, you just lost you also lost the ability to backfill that slot. So it's really you're missing out twice. And that's a problem. You know, there's tons of solutions out there now. There's appointment reminders, services. I think there's probably 100 vendors now that do that. There's all kinds of cool vendors that are supposed to help remind patients to go. Where we're looking at it though, is if you've got a 5% no-show rate, I bet you'd like to know your most frequent no-showers and whether they're scheduled to come in the next 30 days. And that needs to be put in front of you. Or have a flag up there in your practice management system that says, Matt Seafeld tries to schedule his next appointment. It's going to say, you've no-showed the last 3 times. I'm sorry, we can't take this, right? Or a credit card on file that says, look, if you no-show again, or you cancel same day, you're just getting charged $75, $100, whatever it is. It's an auto debit to your credit card. We're not even going to send you the statement. Sounds a little harsh, but this is business, y'all. This is business. I'd love to walk into Whole Foods or Vons or Ralph's and walk out with my groceries and say, I'll catch you next month. Now, it may have worked in the 1800s, you know, early 1900s. That might have been okay, but it's not okay now. Okay, you have to hold folks accountable. Provider reviews. What do you give your doctors every month? What do you give them that's simple and structured in a way to say, look, this is how you're doing? What do you give them that allows you to actually have a conversation with them about maybe some behavioral changes? Now, Dr. So-and-so, you know, your charges are consistent with last year, but your payments are down, but your denials are up. So because your denials have actually increased materially, that's why your payments are down, that's why your AR is up. You know, Dr. So-and-so, your charge lag is actually growing. It's taking you longer to sign off on your note, so we can't get the charges out, which is frankly putting your AR at risk for timely filing. It's slowing down the receivable. It's making the balance sheet look worse. So what do you use each month that you can just hand out and say, here's your scorecard? Okay. So in summary, it's no longer a luxury, in my opinion. It is a necessity. You know, it's funny, when I started Interpoint almost more than a decade ago, I thought it was no longer a luxury. Maybe it might have still been a luxury back then, but it is not now. I can tell you that for sure. And it's only going to be more critical in the coming years to have access to information in ways you've never had it before, and fast, rapid decision making. You have to have ways to spend more time implementing changes and less time trying to find information to decide what to do or what's going on. And stand out from the crowd, right? Yeah, it's funny. Somebody asked me the other day, so you're a practice management company. I'm like, no, I'm not. I mean, my focus now is AI-driven workflow automation to reduce costs, and analytics and transparency to make faster, accurate decisions. Now, we have a practice management system. It's a nice workhorse, but it's the data warehouse, right? And so when we think of where Medivault's headed, we're building out a lot more cloud solutions around the PM. So we're taking that data and we're structuring it, and we're putting it into workflows, we're putting it in analytics. And for those of you that are on here that are clients, you've probably already heard about this stuff, or you will. But that's where we're headed, because we realize that to hold your data hostage is unfair. It's unfair, and that you all need these advancements in technology to be able to manage your risk and manage your costs. No margin means no mission. That's kind of what I would leave you with. There's lots of more content, obviously, we could go through. I'm trying to be sensitive to the time. I think that, you know, at the end of the day, if you can manage your cost to collect, you can focus on the consumer and making sure you're collecting from them, and you make sure you're getting paid what you're supposed to from the insurance company, you are in a very good position. And that was kind of what I would leave you with. We're going to take time for maybe a few questions, and then just in terms of how to get a hold of us, you know, obviously you can reach out to us after the webinar if you have questions. So Ashley, I don't know, do you want to go through a few questions?
Yes, we do have a couple questions. So the first one is, I missed the first part of the webinar. Will you be sharing a recording? And so I can answer that one. Yes, we will. You should receive it most likely tomorrow. So if you missed anything or would like to share it with somebody else, we will send that out. And then the next one is, how do you identify which measures to watch, and how often do you add new metrics?
Well, that's a good question. Well, evolution, right? Evolution is how we're all here. So we are constantly looking at new ways to look at information that speeds up that decision-making process. So that's something that we at Medivault do on a very consistent basis. We've invested in a very large and growing data science team out of Dallas that has really been the cornerstone to a lot of things that we're doing on the analytics side. I'll be completely blunt. You know, we generate about 120 scorecards a month now, and most of our good ideas actually come from our clients in a lot of those meetings that we're having. They're helping educate us in ways we maybe not thought about. You know, is that if you were to look at data in different ways, could we create a key performance indicator that would tell us a story? And so we really do rely on our clients as true subject matter experts, fighting the fight every day in the clinic or the ASC or the hospital to help direct us in where to go. I will add one more, that as we look at a lot of our vendor partnerships, they all have data warehouses. We'd like to grab that data from those warehouses and bring it into ours and really be able to look across lots of different measures. So that's another thing that we've been excited. And a lot of times our vendor partners have metrics that they use internally that we can incorporate as well. So you have to evolve your analytics. I mean, and when I show you a few of these examples, if that's just stuck in time for 12 months, you're irrelevant. Okay, you'll lose your relevancy fast. You have to evolve those. You have to be able to get smarter with how you look at data information, and the tools are out there to do it.
Okay, great. So the next question, is, how often should I be looking at metrics like the ones you've shown?
Yeah, I mean, again, we have 3 layers at MetaVolve. We have our scorecard now, which is really, it's that cup of coffee once a month. It's that storyline, right? Is my revenue cycle doing what it's supposed to be doing? If not, where do I need to look, right? Are the things that I implemented last month to improve my financial performance working or not? And that's really, that's your monthly check-in. But you have to have the ability to access your information real time. And then that's why we've developed our practice analytics web-based solution over the last few years, is to be able to give our clients the ability to get in and do root cause analysis on the fly, right? We know that it could be a doctor walking into an office and saying, hey, what's CPT code XYZ falling off the grid? Well, you can't wait till the end of the month to do that, right? He or she is going to want that information. So you have to have access to that. But you have to realize that, like in the scorecard view, that tells you that gives you a macro view, vantage point of your revenue cycle. And that right there should at least put peace of mind that you're doing the things you need to be doing. And then when you need to drill down, you have the ability to do so. But it shouldn't be, as long as you're comfortable with your scorecard and you know that you're on target, you don't have to be constantly trying to find opportunities. And that's why whatever scorecard you use, whether you work with us at MetaVolve, you work with another firm, you do it internally, it doesn't matter. Make sure your scorecard tells you a complete story of your revenue cycle, so you don't have to wonder during the month, are things going okay or not? Okay. So that's how I would answer that. So obviously you have to have real-time access to information. There's no doubt this day and age, any good practice management system should have that for you, good data visualization tools integrated. But you have to have that scorecard. You just have to, it's a must.
Great.
Any other questions?
So I know we're about to be coming up on our 45 minutes, but there was one last one. How can I access benchmarks for my specialty, and what do I need to be looking for?
There is no shortage of benchmarking databases out there. I mean, you do have your standards, MGMA, HEMS, certainly they have specialty. There are boutique firms out there that have really built their businesses around benchmarking. So I think, my caution on benchmarks is making sure that the ones you're looking at are at least somewhat current. To look at data from even 6 to 12 months ago doesn't necessarily help you in this day and age. Well, 10 years ago, that was fine. It's like, well, the CMS data was 2 years old. That's okay. Nowadays, it can't be, okay? And so I actually challenge our clients to really look at themselves internally, right? Is how are you trending? But also then being able to leverage. I mean, we have, say, 600 clients out there, and so we know, and we have lots of specialties, right? So we have an idea of what we're seeing. And I think that it's important to use benchmarks. You need to make sure that they're accurate. You need to make sure that they're relevant to your medical specialty. Some of the stuff we've created on our own because of 20, 30, 40 plus years of revenue cycle consulting that we've seen things that operate well or not. Okay. But have a purpose. Like I said, if you can't measure, you can't improve off of it, but you have to know what you're measuring against, So that's probably the most important thing. But obviously, if you have more questions around specific benchmarking agencies and things like that, we can certainly take that offline.
Perfect. That's all the questions we had today.
All right. Any other additional questions? You got our email, phone number. We'd love to hear from you. We're going to be pushing out another webinar here probably in the next month around AI-driven workflow and some of the results we've seen internally, as well as some of our larger clients. So we will we'll keep you informed on that, and let us know how we can help. We love working with all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.